Hello, good evening and welcome to another program on Law and Order. Now, most of us who are in business and part of public companies would have heard about the word Securities Exchange Commission, and most of us in the business have heard about that as well. But what is the governing law relating to this? This is an area of law which we haven't discussed in this program and very rarely discuss as well. So today we thought we will go deep into this area of law, Securities Exchange Commission law, because for the reason that the existing law is on the process of being amended. So as always, we invited an expert in this area of law. My expert guest to talk about this area of law is no stranger to our studios. He's been here before and done several programs with us. He's Rajiv Amarasuriya, attorney at law. He's an attorney practicing in public law litigation in the Superior Courts of Sri Lanka. He's also a fellow member of the CIMA UK, as well as a member of alumnus of Colombo University Faculty of Law, as well as Harvard Kennedy School of Government Executive Education. Rajiv is also a commissioner of the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka, which makes it more relevant for him to be in this program. Rajiv, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, Chanak. It's nice to be back on the program.
Yes. How is the new year treating you so far?
So far, good. A lot of hope and prospects for this year. Let's see how it works out for the country.
Yes. Now, Securities Exchange law. Lots of us don't know about this. Common people don't know about this. So before we go into the area amendments and other deep stuff, tell us about what are the securities laws and the present legal framework regulating the capital markets in Sri Lanka.
Chanakya, if one looks at what the securities law is, securities law is the law which basically regulates a securities market. So let us, since we are looking at the new act today, let us look at what a securities, how a security is defined in the new act, and then let us move. It might give a better overlook today. Security is just give me a minute. A security has been defined by the new act to include a debenture, a stock, shares, funds, bonds, units in a collective scheme, derivatives, and such other similar instruments. And a securities market also has been defined to mean a market in which securities are basically sold, purchased, exchanged, so on and so forth. So a securities market is a market in which these securities are traded. Then you asked me the question
of the present legal framework of the capital
market. Yeah. The first piece of proper legislation was in 1987. It came as a Securities Council law, number 36 of 1987, which established the Securities Council. Basically, that is the law which we have today with several amendments. Down the line, the name was changed to the Securities and Exchange Commission, and this is the law which we are now looking at having amended and replaced.
Right. Now, sometimes, as you know, certain times, I would say we don't change much law in Sri Lanka, except for the past few years, which is healthy. But sometimes laws are just changed for the sake of changes in certain countries. But with regard to this, is there actually a need to change and bring about a new Securities Law Act?
Yes, Chanakya, that's a very good question. I think which is very, very pertinent. We have laws sometimes, not only here, in other countries also sometimes change for just the purpose of change. But now we need to build, if you look at from the capital market point of view, right, from the CC's point of view, we need to build a deep and liquid capital market. Our capital market is relatively small. It is one could say relatively illiquid, and also not as sophisticated. Well, I wouldn't say it's not sophisticated, but it's not as sophisticated as it should be. The good indicator is the market capitalization to consider a stock market. Market capitalization as a percentage of GDP. In Sri Lanka, it is 25%. In other countries, now I have the figures here. In India, the percentage is 70%. In Australia, it's 105%. US is 145%. China is 65%. And Hong Kong is as much as 995%. And ours is still only 25%. So obviously, there's a lot of room for improvement. And as you know, a capital market is an important key economic milestone economic area, which needs to obviously be developed for a country to develop, economy to develop. Post 2009, after the war, we had a lot of opportunity in this country. It was a wonderful time. A lot of monies came in the form of foreign investment, but and the stock market obviously did quite well soon after the war. But unfortunately, there were also the situations where the capital market was to some extent the misused, and there were a few people who made use of their position, and there was a situation where there was irregular conduct, and that resulted in a loss of confidence in the market as well. And sometimes even today we have this problem with the local investors also. With bad experience they have had. So anyway, during that period, that is in 2010, there were moves commenced to have a new securities law, and there was a lot of work which had gone into. And during the present chairman was chairman then as well, Mr. Tilak Karunaratne. So during his term, a lot of work went into drafting a new piece of legislation.
Right.
Unfortunately, he had to resign, and the reasons are widely known, in 2012. And then thereafter, of course, not much work had gone into preparation of a new piece of legislation. With the new commission taking over in 2015, we had, I was a member of that commission, we made a decision that we need to now fast track this amendment process or coming out with a new piece of legislation. So we appointed, we are thankful for Mr. Kanageeswaran for coming on board as the chairman of the advisory committee for the drafting of this new piece of legislation, and a lot of work went into it. And during that period, there is this international organization, ISCO, International Organization of Securities Commissions. Now, ISCO has started this new initiative of doing country reviews, and the SEC in Sri Lanka voluntarily requested ISCO to come forward and do a country review, a gap analysis effectively of the Sri Lankan regulatory framework. And they were also very, very happy, because this is, I think, one of the few instances where SEC comes forward and says, well, we want to be audited, or you go through our process and see whether we are doing the right things and whether our regulatory framework is in place. So we did that country review voluntarily, and we had a lot of several issues coming up through that as well, which we were able to pick up from that review and seek to include in the amendment. So that is how this amendment has now come, and now it has been placed before Parliament by the Honourable Prime Minister, and it hopefully during the early part of this year should be promulgated.
Right. What is the ambit and the scope of this new act? I know it's something you can't answer short, but if you were to sum it up.
Let me now, since we are looking at the act, let me just refer to the long title and some of the parts of the act which might give some insight into the ambit. The long title provides that the Securities Exchange Act is an act to establish the Securities and Exchange Commission of Sri Lanka, to regulate market institutions, public offers of securities, market intermediaries, to deal with market misconduct, and to meet the challenges encountered by securities markets in an effective and efficient manner, and to repeal the Securities and Exchange. So basically, that is a very wide ambit of this act. Then if one looks at the powers and functions of this act, powers and functions of the SEC under the new act will be to advise the government on policy and to do with development of the securities market, to encourage, promote, develop the securities market, to give general or specific directives to market institutions, market intermediaries, registered persons, clearing members, to listed companies, then grant licenses to also the institutions, market institutions, market intermediaries. Then again, there are provisions to also investigations, then findings of wrongdoing, things, so on and so forth. So also to regulate takeovers and mergers. So it's a very wide area, and this act is a comprehensive piece of legislation which seeks to address all those very important areas for the economy.
If I were to again ask probably something like same thing I asked, the salient features that is important to the public or to people in the stock exchange, what would be those salient features of this new law, which probably were not there in the past law?
Yes, I think first and foremost, this new piece of legislation which has been proposed is very well structured. The regulators are categorized into groups. You have market institutions, then you have say intermediaries and so on and so forth. Then another important, this is of course a lot in the media, another important initiative is all this time Chanakya under the old act, the SEC, if there was a offender or if there was a capital market offence, the provisions was to prosecute criminally. Now as you know, criminal prosecution is cumbersome, not only for the prosecutor but even for the suspect or the accused. Then also it's time consuming, the burden of proof is beyond reasonable doubt. So across the world there is a shift towards looking at civil sanction and civil action. So now there are new provisions for the SEC to take civil action against offenders of the capital market.
Right.
Then I think we'll go into that later in this interview.
Yes,
then there are other provisions which facilitate now things for the future, a derivatives exchange, a dollar board, then demutualization of the Colombo Stock Exchange, which is also in the pipeline, setting up of a central counterparty clearinghouse that is to mitigate non-settlement risk. Then also through this new act, there is statutory responsibility cast on supplementary service providers such as auditors in reporting. Then also there is a duty imposed or cast on financial advisors. Say if someone gives negligent, reckless or fraudulent advice, and if you make a loss, you can seek compensation. There are provisions now. Then also whistleblowing, and also whistleblowing protection, and also all public offers now public offers of securities now come within the scope and ambit of the Securities and Exchange Commission. So those are the several, and there are many more, but those are the ones which come to mind as being very, very important and in the new provisions.
Right. Now, what are the institutions that comes within the purview of this new act,
Yes.
or because of the new act under the Securities and Exchange Commission?
Yes, that's also I think a very pertinent question. The scope is now, the regulatory scope is wider. A lot of the institutions anyway came within the purview directly or indirectly, but now directly they have been specified. Now for example, under part 2, we have markets and market institutions, and then there are 3 types of institutions falling within that.
Right.
Those are exchanges. Now we have the Colombo Stock Exchange. Maybe sometime in the future, may not be in the short term, but we might look at having another exchange.
Right.
So that will be exchanges. Then we have clearing houses for counterparty risk. Then also central depositories. Then we have part 3 of the act, under securities, we have market intermediaries. Now market intermediaries, it might be relevant for me to look at the definition of
Yes.
market intermediaries,
Yeah.
because that also provides a list. Credit rating agencies, derivatives brokers, financial planners, investment analysts, investment manager, managing company, margin provider, placement agent, stockbroker, so on and so forth. So all of those institutions now come within the purview of the Securities and Exchange Commission directly, specifically mentioned through the act. Then we have also for the unlisted securities market recognized market operators. So it's much wider expressly.
Talking a little bit earlier, you mentioned something about the deregulation or something like that with regard to the stock exchange. And what you are trying to say is you're going to create more than one stock exchange in
No,
Colombo,
I'm not saying that, Chanakya, but there is provision. Because in many countries there are more than one stock exchange.
Right.
And when this market grows, not immediately, not in the near future, but at some point when this market grows, there may be a need for a second or third stock market, a stock exchange. So there is provision enabling such a new development.
Even for a small country like Sri Lanka, it doesn't matter.
Well, it depends on the market. It all
Depends on the
depends. Now, as I said, Hong Kong, the ratio
Yeah.
of the market capitalization to GDP, 900%.
Yes.
So if you have a situation like that, of
That
course,
is
you
Sri
can look
Lanka.
at.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned about stipulating obligations for supplementary service providers like the auditors. So what would be the obligations for auditors under the proposed new act?
yes, that's also another important initiative. Or
Of the new act,
new
yes.
provisions coming in.
Yeah.
As you know, Chanakya, auditors are the first or referred to as gatekeepers. because they are the independent first line of defense. They are the ones who have in-depth or you have intimate knowledge or have access to the books and financial records of our company.
Yeah.
So the auditors have, even in Sri Lanka, played a very important role. Digital Chartered Accountants, regulates them in the development of these listed companies and even public companies, where they have had the standards also have developed substantially in the recent years. But having said that, like any profession, you can have situations where professionals also are truant.
Yes.
So now in the US, soon after the financial crisis in 2008, we had the Obama administration introduced the Dodd-Frank Act. And that through that act, there was a lot of strengthening of the oversight of auditors and also reporting obligations.
Right.
Because as much as one says auditors are independent, they have to be independent, they have a very close relationship with the company. So what we need to do is we need to strengthen the hand of these auditors. Because sometimes there may be things which the standards do not require one to report, but sometimes necessary, sometimes they should, but they may be restrained from doing so. So provisions have been brought in through the new Securities Exchange Act to make it a statutory obligation on auditors when they come across situations of violation of the applicable laws and regulations, directives, so on and so forth, or if there is an imminent violation of those laws, or if there is something very serious, some detrimental thing happening, say, to the financial position of the company, to report this first to the first line of defense, the board, and failing, and also in the case of, say, for example, market intermediaries, report to the board with a copy to the SEC. In the case of listed companies, first to the audit committee. If the audit committee doesn't act, I think within a period of 2 weeks, then to the board, and failing which to the commission. So there is now an obligation cast on the auditors that if they come across something, they are the ones who see the books or see the records, they must report. So that is a very important initiative which has been introduced.
Right. This is something like the banking supervision guidelines from the central bank.
Yes, it's analogous.
Yes. So now you said earlier that there's a lot of civil action that can be taken, then criminal prosecution.
Yes.
You change that.
Yes.
Are there also in the new act offences which are criminal offences in the new act, and if so, what are they?
Yes, there are offences. Everything basically it emanates from the offence, and then the civil sanction is an option.
Right.
Now this is how it works.
Right. Only different
sanction. So let me take you through Part 5 of the Act deals with market misconduct.
Right.
May be relevant in the objects. Objects and purpose of this part shall be to prevent false trading, market rigging, and market manipulation, with a view to establishing a fair, orderly, and transparent securities market, and to prevent insiders trading with a view to establishing fair insider trading. Now the application, I'll straight away go to the offences. Chapter 1 sets out prohibited conduct, false trading and market rigging transaction. Basically, if someone is falsely or misleadingly appearing doing something to create a false and misleading appearance of active trading, then say purchasers to inflate, depress, or cause fluctuations in the pricing. Then stock market manipulation, where transactions likely to have the effect of artificially raising, lowering, pegging, fixing, maintaining or stabilizing the price or volume. Then false or misleading statements being made, say knowingly false or without taking reasonable care. Then fraudulently inducing investors by way of publishing statements, forecasts, then use of manipulative and deceptive devices. All those amount to offences. And if someone is found guilty of an offence, having committed one of these offences, then that's another area where we have where the provisions have been, the punishment has been enhanced. Shall be on conviction liable to a fine not less than 10 million rupees or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 10 years. So the fine is not less than 10 million, and it can be so much more. Then there are provisions on insider dealing, which is the other aspect of this prohibited conduct. An insider is defined, Chanakya, whether such person is connected to the respective company or not, if that person possesses information that is not generally available. And if it were generally available, a reasonable person would expect to have a material effect on the price or the value of securities. So basically price sensitive information. So if you have price sensitive information, there is provision that you should not trade, buy, sell, whatever. And again, the offence results in a conviction. If one is convicted, a fine of not less than 10 million or imprisonment of either description.
It's a whole heap of offences.
Yeah, so basically those are the offences which are relevant.
Right. Other than this, are there any other enforcement measures in the new act?
Yeah, so those are the principal offences. Then there are enforcement. Then sets out again offences.
Yeah.
But if there is an offence, say a violation of some other provision of the act, which doesn't come within something already specified, then the prosecution would be before a magistrate, summary trial, and the fine would be not less than 10 million and not exceeding 100 million, and imprisonment of either description not exceeding 10 years. So it is relevant because there is some provision here. Then of course we have this issue, we had a provision of compounding of offences.
Yes.
You know that.
Yeah.
Now under the present act, you can compound any offence.
Yes.
Now this new act says, well, under part, if it's an offence under part 5, which I read out a little before, then you can't compound. So clearly, if you fall within that, you get prosecuted.
Right.
But if it's an offence for not falling within part 5 and something else, then you can compound up to a maximum of half of the not exceeding one half of the maximum fine. The maximum fine is 100 million, so up to 50 million. Then of course we have the civil. I think I'll touch on that also now. Then we have the civil sanctions. Now the commission is empowered to impose administrative sanction. First provision is that the commission can enter into a settlement agreement with an offender to basically have an agreement of how one settles them or recovers the amount. Then again there is, except in relation to offences listed in part 5 of the act, which I read out before, the commission is also empowered to take the following administrative action. These are what are relevant. Direct a person to comply. Then impose a penalty. Now the commission can do impose a penalty in proportion to the severity or gravity of the breach on the person in breach, but in any event not exceeding 50 million. So you can issue a penalty, reprimand. Then you can take steps to remedy the breach, so on and so forth. Then there is also provision, so important provision. Now, for example, when the commission decides to impose a penalty, if one doesn't pay, then like in the, say for example, the EPF Act, you can go before the magistrate and seek to recover it in the form of a fine. So it's a very efficacious and expedient process which has been set out.
Right. Rajiv Suri, thank you very much for joining Law and Order today, and thank you for giving us a total outlook of that new act and going through with you the proposed act. I think it's helping a healthy regime of securities and capital market regulation in Sri Lanka. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Chanakya. Thanks a lot.
That's Law and Order for you today. Our topic today was the new Securities Act, which should come into force soon. And I'll join you next week with another program on Law and Order.